Good afternoon. Glad to see some shoe business-related faces around. This is the first edition of Performance Days and Footwear. So I'm really happy to be here to open a discussion or have some more knowledge from people in the business. My name is Rucky Zambrano. I studied design, and somehow in the 90s I happened to be related to footwear when I started making soles, designing soles and then footwear, and jumping from one footwear company to the other, traveling around the world, met wonderful people, families, making shoes, factories, knowing the whole supply chain. But you know, a hard life. When you are there, you're asked to do something beautiful with price, and now we have to be responsible to the planet. And then we don't know where to go, or we don't have always the knowledge to be able to choose all the time. Especially me, sorry, I'm an old generation. Maybe I'm less knowledgeable in that regard. So we have invited, you know, a tannery, Mr. Thomas Heinen, an institution, Mr. Michael,
Michael Meyer from FILK in Germany.
Exactly. They're going to introduce themselves right now, but let's say they are more related to, if you take the shoe divided in two, you have the upper, and the main material has been leather, and other materials in which we are going to explore, you know, and then the bottom, which is the outsole. And there's this novelty that Vibram and Blue Sign have collaborated to do a certified...
Something new. We will.
They're going to explain, because I haven't finished understanding that yet. They're going to explain themselves. Okay, so we start with Thomas. What makes a tannery or your product different, or what should I be choosing? Leather against other materials, and what's the purpose for the planet in that?
Maybe the right question would be, why wouldn't you choose leather?
Okay.
Leather is probably the oldest material out there for a good reason. It developed with us humans. It's a logic consequence that at some point when you want to eat protein, there is a hide that stays behind. So instead of throwing it away, you rather turn it into leather. Leather being a fantastic material that humans relate to. It has a fantastic touch, unbeatable technical qualities. And in that perspective, it's a logic development to use leather and not use other materials while throwing the natural grown hide in the garbage. So if the tannery doesn't use the hide, then it's lost. And you need to create a synthetic material that is probably in the technical properties not as good as leather. At the same time, you throw the hide in the garbage. And for at least my tanner point of view, that wouldn't make too much sense.
Okay. I have visited your facility and I was quite impressed, because one of the things I remembered is that you treat the water, especially in a way in which you, devolve the waters even into the city. Is that correct? Or did I misunderstood? Because we all have this fear that the process of tanning is something bad. Can you explain us more of that?
Well, the image of a tannery in most people's mind is something that there's somebody standing in some kind of pit, standing with his feet and pushing the dye stuff into the skin, and most likely it's going to be a child. But honestly speaking, the modern tannery has nothing to do with that image. We are, and many other good tanneries are, an industrial process that is highly regulated. We need to fulfill all the laws and regulations that any other industry has to fulfill. So tanners are no exceptions. So whatever is in the mind of people, and if you Google, for example, tannery, the first picture that comes up is the the antique tannery in Fez in Morocco with all the wonderful, colorful pits, but that is not the normal process. So, of course, to answer your question, we are cleaning the water on the highest possible level based on European and German law. And we are buying chemicals like most companies do on the normal regulated level like everybody else does in other industries. So if a tannery comes to mind, everybody needs to forget that traditional old picture in their head and think of a modern industrial company.
Okay. Good. What about, Michael, can you explain us what your institution does and what is those old so-called alternatives to leather in the market, and what's the future?
Complicated question. Surely, I'm a scientist. Our institution is an institution which has been founded more than 100 years ago as a tanning institute. And then in the middle of last century, we added technology, so making and developing coated textiles. It's our wording for leather or other words which are on the market or in mind. Today we have these different main directions we follow. We have the option to handle animal protein. We have the option to handle fossil-based materials, especially flexible materials which are composed of different layers, which I would say is the material of synthetic or artificial leather, for example. And since I think 2 to 5 years ago, it began that many new ideas came up, and some selected materials came on the market which didn't want to use fossil-based materials or fossil-based raw materials which are used for making synthetic leathers, and not to use animal-based products, so they were looking for alternatives. We did a study 2 years ago where we compared these new materials as well with the synthetic leathers and the leathers itself. The result is up to now none of these new materials which came up on the market are a real alternative. But the question at the end is which would like the customer to have on one hand, and on second hand, for which application you use this material. And usually if I'm asked for this, if you buy a shoe, you can buy an open shoe for the opera, or you can buy a shoe for hiking. It's a difference, but it's both a shoe. The question is for which purpose you need this shoe. And then you can as well look for alternative materials which look fantastic, which are completely vegan, and which are maybe the solution for the world, but at the end you cannot wear it longer than 2 days or 3 days, and then
so at the very end there's no point in making a comparison, so each one fits the purpose, as we could say. It's a matter of if I want a certain stretchability, breathability, or a certain ethic in not throwing more after product into the I would choose leather, and if I want other characteristics on what I'm using, I could choose a substitute, a coated textile. But there is a difference in the coating, I guess, fossil-based or bio-based at the moment. Is there?
Up to now, we didn't find any bio-based product which is really competitive with fossil-based products. So the polymer industry developed for almost 100 years polymers which can be used for very high technical performances. In the bio-based field, we don't see this up to now.
Okay. Quite clear for me, at least. Is there any questions from the audience at the moment?
Hi, I'm Giulio from Aku Footwear Company, and we are into the database trouble at the moment because we calculate carbon footprint of our products. And I totally agree with leather is the best material for outdoor footwear in most of the application. And I don't see a decline of it, but when I look at database, they tell me that it's a very high impact material. So I'm from the industry, I know how to make footwear, I know that leather will be good and will be long lasting, and I agree on the topic of don't waste the hides. But then if we go back to the consumer perspective, they will be maybe looking for lower carbon impact and just buy, I don't know, recycled microfiber instead of leather, and not looking at the real story in the future. What do you think?
Before you guys answer that, can I add to it? We had a very similar conversation after lunch today with Delano about wool, which comes off equally as bad, which has actually highlighted how natural materials get an unfair representation. All they want is a fair representation, but the way that we assess it is not set up for that. So, Michael, I'm going to especially point towards you, because you're an academic will get this hassle the whole time.
It's a really complicated topic, of course. This morning I read an article, for example, if you, the question is how to set the balance frame, the framework for the LCA on one hand, but to be, to simplify this, just a small aspect of this. If we have to dry a natural-based material by removing water, it completely destroys your balance. If you compare this with a polymer-based material, which just use solvents, for example, organic solvents, to make this polymer. So just one aspect of this. So it's a very complex topic, and you can end up at the end that growing or breeding cows or ruminants is of big advantage if you completely observe the whole cycle, the whole life cycle of these animals. And for example, now it's known that they, for example, improve the biodiversity of the meadows where they are growing. But this is not a part of the framework up to now, and this is not balanced. But how to balance this? Complicated topic.
So that's the empty part of the glass.
Rucky, the other hassle is that we have an expert in the audience actually on this biodiversity, who I'm now going to embarrass. Nina, you know more about bringing up getting proper leather. Can you give us a slight insight to help the panel? This is the problem. If you're a specialist and I spot you, I'm going to make you work to be in the audience.
I just leave. No, actually, I actually don't know what to add. Yeah. I know. So, but what Michael just said is this only counts for leather that is from cattle that have lived on a organic, biodynamic, or on a regenerative farm. So this is not part of any of the industries, of the big meat industries. So maybe.
So that's the challenge. That's the other part of the challenge.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Do we need to change? Do we need to change the raw material? But what can the leather industry do as they are using leftovers from the food industry? What can they do to change agriculture?
Well, that's more the kind of the hands of the food industry.
Exactly.
So they have to work hand by hand, probably.
And it's not just the food industry, it's also the people. It's the consumers who decide what they want to buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very
and
much.
what price, what they want to pay.
Yeah.
Not just for the meat, but also for leather. So.
Absolutely. That's it. It very much depends on the price. Of course, it's a huge difference if you look at an small animal farm with 10 animals or with 500. That's a different CO2 impact in the end. But to come back to your question, I think one other aspect also needs to be looked at is the durability of a product. And the life cycle assessments that I'm aware of, they basically point out that up to the point of the usage of the material, leather has a disadvantage in the CO2 emission. So leather takes more energy to be produced compared to a synthetic material. However, once the leather is being turned into a shoe, for example, the shoe lasts much longer than a synthetic material, and that makes the whole coin flip, and to the advantage of leather. So leather production may be more CO2 emission, but over the whole life cycle, the shoe turns positive in leather compared to synthetics. I don't know if Michael can confirm that, but definitely the durability should be looked at.
Exactly, and interesting hint for this is, I don't know, maybe you know the word Abschreibungstabelle. So
depreciation table.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
So to look in these tables, it's very interesting because they calculate this. And if you use these data, you find this, that the products which are made from synthetics are last shorter time than the products which is made from leather. So it's and these are valuable data. It's from the financial government, so they know what they are doing, I think.
Okay.
So do I presume the next footwear panel I have Giulio and Nina joining your footwear panel? But
Okay.
Rucky, back to you, because there are no other questions in the audience yet.
Because
so.
I would like to go to the outside part, which I'm passionate of course, and which is a big question mark for me, because at least myself being a shoe dog, I have seen this sign all the time, blue sign, blue sign, blue sign. I worked with Vibram for a long time, so I know what rubber is and how we've been dealing with it in recycling and so on. But I'm not familiar with what blue sign does, and how can blue sign, what do they certify? So you guys can explain me more or less better what you have been doing there, and what you are going to deliver to the market.
First of all, we have a video that can run on the back explaining a little bit more. I have to say, I don't know if everybody knows Vibram. We are a synthetic rubber high performance sole. So synthetic, we are bad guy coming from oil, making an impact. I believe every product makes an impact, by the way. And the idea, let's say, apart all the action that we are doing internally to measure, I'm an engineer, so I'm a very big fan of measuring everything to understand where I am and decide where to go. We understand in sustainability that one of the major issues is to get comparability. We were talking about consumer that today, in my opinion, are confused about all the, not saying greenwashing, because there is a greenwashing as well, but all the claim that everybody is doing in order to say his story about his sustainability. So from my perspective, from the perspective of Vibram, we are lucky that we are below the shoes of many brands. We have the duty, because we are quite big or leader in our market, to try to be more responsible and try to find a way to improve the footwear business. And the idea that we came out was to partner with Bluesign. We were trying to have a kind of understanding of their methodology. I can tell you, and sorry Bluesign, is not the only methodologies. There are tons of that. We felt it was one of the most rigorous and the more, let's say, in line with what we feel in terms of sustainability issue and topic. And we told them, you are for apparel. Our customers are mainly apparel and footwear, or many of our customers are apparel and footwear. Can we give you our knowledge on footwear in order to create or enlarge your methodology to analyze and certify footwear as well? And the purpose of this is to find some standard, trying to converge as an industry to a unique standard, because in our opinion, if we compare 3 different certifications, they are all clever, they are all good, everybody which is certified is doing something positive for sustainability. But the point that you cannot compare. And today, I'm not talking only about the consumer, I'm really strong with citizen, because we have to give our information about impact to everybody, even the people who are not buying from us. but we need to make them able to understand and make their choice. They can choose something which is not sustainable. I don't complain about that, but they need to have the right information and comparable information. So we cross the road, our journey with bluesign, and we ask them, can we do something together? It was 3-4 years ago. It has been a long journey, and today we are ready with a methodology, with knowledge and support, because the methodology today is theory. We analyze a lot of our products and a lot of things around, and we are asking footwear player, brand of footwear, come on board with us in the project to be able to make, to close the circle and become certified bluesign, possibly with the Vibram sole.
Yeah, you said right. We started 4 years ago, and there was a big exchange of know-how. First of all, from Vibram to bluesign to create a method how to do all the process for the footwear. And from bluesign, there was a big exchange of know-how to them from the chemical point of view, because someone of you probably knows what is bluesign and what we do and what kind of certifications we do and we did in the past for the apparel, and we are still doing. But after we have seen that for many years, outdoor industry was very sensitive about the bluesign certification, we decided to go into the footwear industry. There is a lot of textile also in the footwear industry, but we missed the other part, and Vibram helped us to understand the footwear industry well. And so now we have started this project, and as he said, we would like to have as many brands as possible on board to certify their products, to certify that their products are safe for the people and for the environment. And that's our purpose.
And just to add, in terms of industry, today I believe that it's impossible to find a single standard for every industry. Let's say a mobile phone with, I don't know, a jacket or shoes can be different to be analyzed and to be certified, or to have a unique way to measure it. You see on LCA, you mentioned LCA, we are running LCA for every product of Vibram, and we had to create the PCR, which is the methodology for the sole, which is not the same for a biscuit or for a mobile phone or something. By industry, we feel that we can converge for footwear business in a, let's say, at least one. I don't know how many players have, let's say, the usual rule of 80-20. 80% of the business is made with 20 players. I can discuss and have all the data of this 20% player, and I spend time to analyze and to see if they are clever, if I want to stay with them or not. But all the other 80% of companies which are making the 20% of business, I would like to have a rating or a certification or something. We would like to invest the money and the time to do sustainability, not to analyze people and to run bureaucracy to see that everybody is okay. This is to create products which are giving citizens the confidence that we are trying to do our best. We will never be perfect. We will try to do our best.
As a brand, if I'm in the position of a brand or a manufacturer, if I'm vertical, it's easy to control every single step of my supply chain. The moment I start outsourcing every single part of every single component in the factories, how does that interact with the help that you can give us to obtain? So I'm guessing that the certification is guiding me to be more thoughtful on what I choose to do through my supply chain. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because for apparel is sometimes very easy because you have verticalized company, you analyze everything from the spinning to the final packaging, for example. For footwear, as you said, is completely different because very few companies are verticalized. What bluesign is doing is to create a roadmap. So every shoe is composed by many components. So at the moment, we are not ready to analyze every component of the shoes, but we are analyzing the components that are more, that can be more risky. Like we started, for example, from the upper part and from the outsole. So all the components that are in contact with the skin and with the ground. And that's why also there is this cooperation with Vibram. So we are starting from that, and along with the brands, we are creating step-by-step a roadmap to be to certify the products from now, and to be ready within 2-3 years to certify all their components. But even now we are ready to certify the shoes of our brands, starting from the most risky part.
Yeah. Somebody in the audience has a question regarding...
whilst I'm looking for the question, I just want to let Marco know we have nightmares over LCAs in apparel. As an industry standard, we all think an LCA is an exact scientific measurement. An LCA will be based on carbon, water, and waste, and up to 30 other additional factors. What I mean is that you can have an LCA that looks at 5 factors or an LCA that looks at 35 factors. So even if we were both to do an LCA at the same time, we would put different things in and we would get a different result. And that's caused so much confusion because an LCA works, but it was designed for the construction industry and we're trying to apply it. So the nightmare you're living, we share the love because it's hell for us. But I'm filling to ask, waiting for a question. You're not here to have my points. Yeah? I'm here to facilitate questions. Giulio, keen.
It's a very simple question. What is the advantage that you see for a company that will certify with Blue Sign its footwear?
First of all, it's a matter of sustainability. So being more sustainable, having more control of all the chemical materials that you are using in your production. And our kind of control that we have on the company, so what we call assessment of the company, we assess all the process. It's not only certifying the final material based on testing, because the Blue Sign methodology is called the input stream management. So we assess everything based on the raw materials that compose a chemical material. So we assess everything based on the risk assessment at the beginning of all the process. And so if the chemistry are clean, then the production will be clean, and at the end, the final product will be clean. So the big advantage is that one. And we don't assess only the chemical part, but also we assess that there is the proper measure for the health and safety for the people and for the environment. So we check that the factories have all the systems in place to be sustainable and safe for the people. Then obviously the labeling is giving also a marketing advantage, but that is a second point. We are talking about the real sustainability things now.
We're still looking for questions because otherwise I start picking on the panel. And earlier today, we had Katie Stevens of the European Outdoor Group talk about the incoming legislation, the EU Green Deal, of which, for the apparel industry, we've identified eco-design, we've identified the provenance or the transparency, and we've identified green claims. Now, we are remarkably advanced compared to other parts of the apparel industry, but we know when legislation comes in, if you are not compliant, you do not operate. It's not an option. It's not something that can be deferred. It will stop your business. So to pick on you, Marco, in particular at Blue Sign, it's a channel that gets answers that are needed. Whether we volunteer to do it now or whether legislation is going to kick our butt.
Yeah, working with Blue Sign, you will have verified data. So all the green claims done by the brands or by the manufacturer, with Blue Sign, you will be able to have a label that certifies that your green claim are verified. So there is no risk about greenwashing or to not be compliance with the new regulation. And that is one of the advantages. I didn't mention about that because the regulation is still in work in progress, is not yet finalized. But Blue Sign is ready for that. So whenever there will be a green claim about water consumption, energy consumption, carbon footprint, Blue Sign is an authorized body to give this kind of certification and a label that certify that those data are real.
If I can add something from the, let's say, manufacturer perspective, I think that legislation is going in probably in the right direction. If is guided by experts on the industry, this legislation can be better, can be more in line with the best practice. As Vibram, we are participating in Italy with Monitor for Circular Fashion, which is the fashion industry putting together best practice and KPI and suggestion to the Euro community and the United States. In the US, we are working with Footwear Collective made from MIT in order to have really this communication. Let me make a kind of joke. I'm coming from, I was R&D manager before, and in R&D, everybody was hiding the innovation things to avoid, to keep secret around. Today in sustainability, I have to say that we need to cooperate. If we do things together, the life of everybody in the industry will be easier tomorrow. And the first coming on board, I mean, not only with Bluesign, I'm sponsoring Bluesign, of course, because we are working on that. But if the legislation will be correct, will be right, today LCA for me is a very scientific methodology. But when you take only carbon footprint or CO2, and you don't take into consideration durability, we are out of the business because consumer can see that there are other products less impactful. But my product maybe stay 10 years and the other one stay 1. And the consumer, the citizen needs to understand and to have an easy way to understand things. So come on board in terms of making the legislation. You don't need to come with us as a partnership, but the idea is really to work because the footwear business needs to converge in something and not being everyone asking his own questionnaire, his own things and doing things separately. We need to be together to do the same.
First of all, because there's a lot of effort and a lot of fights that every single company is doing on their own.
So, sorry, yeah. You say it's an effort. It's cost. Sustainability, in theory, is profitability because you avoid wasting time or wasting energy, wasting material for something. We need to save this and invest time and energy in something which is more profitable, which is doing better material, better processes, and innovation. Innovability, we call it, the mix from innovation and sustainability.
And hopefully we get to that breakpoint that it becomes accessible. Because more standards there are, hopefully the prices are going to be more understandable by the consumer and by the industry itself, you know, because if it becomes a standard, it's not only unique. It's like what you spoke about innovation, you know. Today we speak about open innovation. Innovation is no more little rats in the lab working on their own. It's like sharing knowledge to help each other. So that's the point of what we want to, this is just a starting point for these panels, to bring the industry together. As we said, we pay off and say we want to connect the dots of this industry, which is so complex. So but whatever one gives the hand to another, we can together work with purpose to make this industry a better place and deliver better products and have nice places to work as well. I would say so. I've been enjoying it so far. I want to keep enjoying it the same way.
I have a question, and it's mostly to Thomas or Michael. Well, when you hear all these developments and with this like Bluesign and certifications and everything, and also knowing that consumers, brands are focusing on LCAs and low carbon footprint, how do you think that the leather industry or brands that use leather can communicate that natural materials are a good choice?
Good question. I can say from our point of view as a supplier to the shoe industry, that most of our customers don't communicate about leather at all. And that's a big problem. We have been trying for the last 15 years to push our customers to talk about leather with the help of TerraCare. So we prepared basically everything for them. We have all the certification from the different certification organizations in line. They get all the data from us. But in the end, most of the brands don't want to communicate because it takes the attention away from their own brand. And then when I talk to the customers, I always tell them, listen, when a consumer looks at a shoe and it is a leather shoe, what do they see? They see leather and an outsole. And the shoe specialist, maybe they see 25 components, but the consumer sees 2 or 3. So why not talk about your main component? And that is a huge problem. And I think there's so much to talk about leather that it's a huge mistake not to mention the leather. The guys from Aku are doing a great job mentioning their supplier Dani. Good job there. Very transparent, very open. So that's very good. The guys from Lova do similar things with us. But in the end, it needs to be, again, an industry effort to really talk about the components that are in there. Because in the end, this transparency leads to credibility. And credibility leads to people buying your product. And this transparency, if it's not there, at least in the younger generation, it will lead not to a successful brand, to my opinion.
Yeah, and then you still have the animal at the origin of the leather supply chain. And it will always be talk about animal welfare. So how would you suggest brands to... Because what I see from tanneries or from the leather industry, that they just defend and say leather is a good material, it's natural, it's biodegradable, and so on. And they don't go into discussion. So it's always a very biased discussion between vegan and not vegan. But yeah, how to approach that?
I'm not trying to convince any vegan to take an animal product. We are addressing the leather lovers and the meat lovers and the cappuccino drinker and the Parmesan cheese on the pasta eaters and all of these people. The others, they're different. It's fine, respect, it's fine. For me, when we talk about transparency and sustainability, maybe it sounds a little bit harsh, but we talk about money in the end. And the industry could do much better than they are doing now, but all of that costs money. So to give you an example, we can get every single hide lasered with the ear tag number of the animal. We can have 100% transparency for all of our customers. But that will increase the leather price by probably something like 3 to 5%. It's impossible to be implemented. The industry is much better than what the consumer would be willing to pay for it. And in the end, there's a lot of talk, but people need to put their mouth where the wallet is. And they stop where the money begins to go higher. Unfortunately, that is the truth.
Yeah, but still, like 50% of people think that animals are killed for leather production. So you can just ignore that fact and not talk about it. So I think FILK Institute is doing a very good job, and maybe you have some ideas how to approach that, because you know how also the other materials are produced, and also pineapple is not produced in a very sustainable and organic way, the way we use it to make piñatex, for instance.
To detect whether a material is bio-based or not bio-based is possible by scientific methods. To detect animal welfare is not possible by scientific methods, of course. This is one thing. The second thing is if you are producing your products or your materials for final products in a more craft way, of course, this is a completely different thing than if you are working in industrial scale with all the problems which you have addressed then. For example, you are talking about piñatex. Up to now, as I know just from the website, they're producing small amounts. It's okay. It's a more craft process. If you scale this up on industrial scale, like it has been done for many other products, one example is leather in the past, then you will get, then you will end up in a principle of a paper industry. With water problems with energy consumption as a paper material or paper production. So the production principles are then the same as you are producing other raw materials or other bio-based materials in an industrial scale. And this can be addressed, of course, with LCAs. It's possible. And then you can, for the final, for the same final product, you can compare this if you have the same framework and compare the LCAs. But I think the key point now is, on one hand, the scale up in industrial scale, and many of these alternative materials did not address this up to now. And we have many discussions as well with the designers of these materials. They think about all is wonderful, but we have to say, if you scale it up, you get this problem. We had a funny situation. A student was developing, she called it leather alternatives coming from the outer skin of fruits. And the first question I asked her, how will you manage 5 square meters? No answer, it's not possible. An apple is not 5 square meters. So the thinking from this side is usually, they have good ideas and fantastic concepts, but at the end you have to discuss as well how it is manageable on a scale where we have industrial processes. And I think this is one of the main topics we have now.
So it could be easier to just go back to the food industry and try to work there eventually. One solution.
Can I throw a point into the mix? Last week, Thomas and I bumped into each other, and there was a stunning event that we were both at, and we listened to a session called No Data, No Compliance, No Business. And the last was Pascal from Ohana Public Affairs, Ohana, OHANA, who's a lobbyist in Brussels. And she made a very simple point, which is we have legislation incoming, and whereas if it was automotive or if it was the medical industry, they know when legislation hits, if you're not compliant, you do not have a business. Right now, there is textile legislation coming through. And I agree with the point made that we think we're still going to be able to lobby it. We have European elections next year. Even us Brits know that. We think they're going to push legislation through before next year, so before the elections next year, even though it's not perfect. So I think Blue Sign, you've got a great future, because you're on the board already. I know that legislation's not going to be perfect. I'd really like to hear Michael's points on this, because it's still developing. So what I'm asking the question around is, we have incoming legislation. We have a very laissez-faire or relaxed attitude towards the incoming. We haven't yet woken up that if we don't have it, we don't operate. From your point of view at FILK, what would you like to say to the industry about how we must improve our practice? Is that a reasonable question?
I would ask back, or just comment on regulation and medical industry, because we have experience with this field. 80% of the money is lost for regulation, and just 20 or 10 to 15% is used for production. So regulation costs very much money, and whether this is necessary for a consumer product, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. To have open
but
data,
if it's incoming and it is actually going to happen,
to have data available, it's necessary, it's important, and to have to increase the databases as well in direction of longevity and other data which is not collected up to now. I think this in any case necessary, but to increase regulation, I'm not sure whether this is the right way.
I don't write legislation. I just see it when it's incoming. But if I throw it back to you guys, especially the Vibram point of view, we know it's on the horizon. Is this why you have aligned with Blue Sign? And are you aligning with other partners for other
But let's say the point for us is to talk with legislator and to be able to. No, I don't want influence. Maybe we have to learn because we are not perfect and we don't have a clear idea of everything we should do. And by the way, we will be forced to stay on the legislation in the future. And if we can give the best suggestion to make this legislation less expensive or more in line with what is today, provided that today is sustainable. Maybe we have to improve a lot of things, but we feel that we are a little bit in advance comparing with our competitor, and we can bring advantage to the sustainability if we influence the law in the right way. If there are only economical interest in writing the law, sometimes you have mistake. Personally, I'm surprised, or let's say not surprised, but shocked about what's happened to plastic. Plastic, for me as an engineer, is a wonderful invention and has been demonized. Of course, it's the use of human of plastic which has been the wrong side. But of course, we need to find a way and find what is right for the future of our planet. Which, by the way, is not the planet, because the planet will survive. Is our survival on our planet that we have to take care and be sure that we regenerate. We try to make things which are not only taking resources from our life, let's say.
And if you want to get into regenerative, Thomas, we know it's what comes out of the back end of cows that will give our soil the greatest chance of this planet being able to produce food. So we need the ruminants. Desperately we need the ruminants. There's no better way of creating healthy soil.
I thought it was going to be my body.
Oh, come on. I'm filling for questions. Does anyone else want to pick on our panel? Because otherwise I hand it back to Rocky, and Rocky says thank you, and we all disappear. Well, these four guys you're going to be able to pick on individually if you need to have a one-to-one.
Yeah, yes, and I will just invite you to go around to the booths, because they are different one from each other. We have Thomas Tanner there. We have Vibram Blue Sign, and we have other like. Oh.
I have
you have it in here or in the other side?
No, I have my booth there, and I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. Because I work with leather, obviously, and I do focus on the upper. So I have a question for Vibram, because I've been working with sole producers that produce natural rubber or work with food waste and so on. Do you have any plans to change the main ingredients of your soles?
Let's say we always had plan to bring natural rubber to our range of products. I can tell you that we have launched a few years ago the EcoStep Natural, which is an oil. By the way, this sole is made on natural rubber, for instance. And is something very positive because you can use it for lifestyle, light trekking, but you cannot reach the high performances of mountaineering or work and safety or whatever else. So you need to, as we said before, go by application and decide which is the right product for the right application. On the other side, I can tell you that natural, despite the fact that is very, let's say, is available in the world, sometime if the full, let's say, pneumatic business and the sole business go to natural rubber, probably we have to take out some Amazonian trees to have the space to plant natural rubber trees. So it's always, from what I learn in sustainability, the answer is always it depends. We are working on projects to make things available to everybody and from whatever source. But sometimes it's not always the right thing. And by the way, on the process, on natural rubber, we find that we have more waste.
But there are two interesting things with vulcanization in rubber that are coming. One is the process of devulcanizing, breaking the process to use the same tires and so on, and revulcanize them, which is not the same as recycling in mixing it with new rubber. which is a company is doing this, no, rubber convention in conversion in Verona, and there are some collaborations with you guys and with Scarpa and other people. You're taking the soles, and you can explain it.
But
and then the other one that you mentioned me.
Which one? The natural source.
No, is to make the compound ready to be devulcanized afterwards.
Okay, this is
That's
something that we would like to work with. Let's say we are trying to use on a circular way waste from others, or we are using waste on our production. So pre-consumer waste is something where we have our list of material which are not forbidden in our list, and so it's easier for us to use our pre-consumer waste from rubber. And we created in 1994 the EcoStep Recycle, which is a compound which is recycling material, let's say up to 30% in the compound of the sole. But the real game changer should be the devulcanization or the vulcanization reversible, let's say.
Exactly.
Devulcanization today is asking a lot of energy anyway, and a lot of other things which in the life cycle assessment you don't get the completely positive balance, even if it's using something that is not going in the landfill.
At least we recover the waste.
Yes. So everything is positive. In my opinion, today we are not at the recipe, the final recipe. We are working on different directions to find a way to be more circular. But from our perspective, as a Vibram is a compound and molding sole, so only one part of the shoes, we really stimulate our customer to work on eco-design in total. So not only on the material. I just brought this as an example. This is a component shoes, as we call it. Aesthetically, I don't like it very much. So we don't sell it as it is.
It's a concept.
The idea is a concept to stimulate our customer to work on something which is for monocomponent. The sole is from natural rubber, the midsole is from recycled EVA, the upper can be leather, can be, this example is from Candiani denim, and we take their waste from production, from the denim to the jeans. And we are trying to do something which is easy to be dismantled and recycled as a monocomponent. Or in the other way, you can substitute only one piece if it's the broken piece or the one who needs to be substituted. And moreover is eliminating the process of production, so gluing, pressing, heating, and so on. I'm not saying that this is the key. Is a way, let's say, is challenging our customer to do something on eco-design, because in my opinion, we today are selling soles. Maybe tomorrow we will sell kilometers of walking, and there will be a different way of selling. The idea is really to open our mind and don't stay in the business as usual, but try to find a new way which can be more profitable and more sustainable. Profitable and sustainability for me goes together. It shouldn't be more expensive. If not, no companies will invest in medium long term. So sustainability and profitability are together.
Good.
Marco, never give us half the story, because we're going to get you back in 6 months' time to tell us the other half. But Rucky, can I pass it back to you to close the panel, please?
Yeah, so all I have to say here is I'm very happy to see everybody here again. Happy of this conversation, and this, as I said, this is a starting point. We will be having more and more, going deep into arguments, because the purpose is to work together so that we can make this industry, which is so complex at the moment, as a shoe is, to have that dream and get into circularity for the final product one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.